Hi, guys. Welcome to the Elation Podcast. We're here today with Emily Diament. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you came through.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So where are you from? Let's just get started there.
I'm from Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
BR.
Yep, BRLA.
Yep.
Although I tell you what, I feel like I'm from New Orleans. I feel like since I moved here, it's kind of meant to be. But born and raised Baton Rouge.
I like BR. It's cool. Yeah.
It's a good place.
Yeah. I haven't spent a ton of time with it. My wife went to LSU, though, so we...
Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
me too.
I'm sure you went there, too, as well. Yeah. What did you go to college for?
I studied mass communication with a concentration in PR and a minor in business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always kind of had it in my mind that
So
I'd
always had it.
have that business.
Because I was going to ask you, growing up, what was the catalyst that showed you your path, if that makes sense?
Well, it's funny because when I went to college and it was, time to determine the major, I remember seeing PR and honestly, not really knowing what PR was.
Right.
Just thinking, okay, relating with the public. It sounds pretty social.
Right.
I'll do it. So I did it. And, even going through college, I feel like you learn things from the textbook, but you don't exactly understand how it's all going to be executed.
Oh, yeah. No, the application is always the extra part.
Yeah. And then you get that first internship or that first job and you get thrown into it and you're like, now I really understand what this means.
Right.
So honestly, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into until after I graduated and started interning. Or I guess I interned through college. But, even really getting into the real world when it's like, you are a working person now. I'm going to throw you into this account.
Yeah, but you must have been a social butterfly in high school, though.
Yeah, I've always been.
I've
always been pretty outgoing.
Because you can't be shy and just go into PR. You have to be outgoing and know exactly what you're pushing.
Right. So I've always been,
that's
a
awesome.
pretty social person.
That's awesome.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Luckily it worked out for me, and I really love it.
It seems like the right spot for you.
Yes.
How was LSU? What was your experience? Did you enjoy it?
It was good, yeah. My parents went to LSU. They met there. So, it was always kind of something for me since I really didn't have, an extreme career passion that I knew about from an early age. I was like, well, I'm just going to take advantage of LSU. It's in my backyard. I grew up on the LSU lakes,
Wow.
so it was very close to home. I knew I'd get in-state tuition.
Right,
And for me, I was like, it just doesn't make sense for me to go anywhere else when I have this great place that I can go really close to home. So I loved it, all 4 years. Did the whole sorority thing with the PR major. I had a good time.
That's awesome.
I loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what made you start wanting to do PR for music?
So after I graduated and I moved to New Orleans, I got my first job in PR at an agency here. It's no longer here, but ended up working there for, almost 6 or 7 years. And of course, when you're in an agency, you kind of get thrown a lot of different types of clients.
Right.
I always knew that I loved music. I grew up singing. I was a choir nerd.
Okay.
I loved it. I did the, all-state choir, all the singing stuff. That was my favorite thing. But honestly, I always had a difficult time discovering new music. I never really knew, it's like you have, what was it, LimeWire and all those things back then, but you had to search it. So in my mind, I'm like, if you don't know it, how do you find it?
How do you find it?
They didn't have Spotify Discover Weekly back then or anything like that. So when I was at this agency, my first music client that I was given was the Buku Music and Art Project, which was a hip-hop, indie rock and electronic festival here. Reached 10 years, and then unfortunately it's no longer happening, at least for the time being.
At least for right now.
But it was a total eye-opener for me. And working that event really made me realize the passion that I had for music, even if electronic might not be my favorite genre of music, but I had such a huge appreciation for it by being there,
right.
Especially in that first year. I mean, I think there was only 3,000 people in attendance.
Yep.
The lineup was amazing. It was Skrillex, Wiz Khalifa, Diplo, Avicii, Porter Robinson, this incredible lineup.
Yep.
And that 3,000 a day, year one, turned into 12 or 13,000 a day the second year, just because people realized wow, this is going to be a real thing.
Right.
And it was super cool to be a part of that. And that's kind of when I realized not only am I super passionate about working in PR, but being able to work in music and push something out there that people might not understand and then see such a response, the increase in attendance from one year to the next, which I don't think for the team was expected at all for it to go up that much. it was incredible and really cool to be a part of.
That's awesome.
So, that was like the jumping point. And then from there, I expressed interest to my bosses, like, I'd love to be able to work more in this industry. I do a lot of food work, and I did a lot of food work back then too. So those are my favorite industries.
Yeah,
but
music and food is a good blend.
Yeah, especially when you're in New Orleans.
I mean, it's pretty much...
It's like the things that make New Orleans, New Orleans.
Right, it's in our blood.
Yeah, and the good thing about music and food is there's always going to be enough of it.
Right.
It's like there's other PR people out there, there are other agencies out there, but what I always say is there's plenty enough for all of us to be able to work within that industry because, I mean, just restaurants alone, there's like, I don't even know, thousands or maybe more than thousands.
But it's also, you can enjoy food while listening to music. So it's really kind of an all-encompassing, thing that you can attach yourself to.
Yeah, well, especially with all the festivals that we have here, like all the food festivals that have music lineups, and you end up combining them both.
Absolutely.
But it's been awesome.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's funny because that's kind of how I found music a little bit. I was in the car business, and we started throwing car events and car shows and stuff. And the last car show I threw had 9,000 people show up. So I was
here?
No, this was in Palm Beach.
Oh, okay.
And exotic supercar type of car events. We were having racing car events and all kinds of stuff around the shows, and it was great. But part of my job on the team was I was in charge of the entertainment. Oh. So I would book the band, do the staging, do all the stuff. And as I was doing it, I realized I'm spending a lot of money on one day for entertainment instead of, I have my own distribution network. So why don't I find a local band that I like, put the same amount of money behind them and use them every time and sell merchandise and do CDs and do the whole thing. So that's kind of how the music bug, even though I've always loved music, I didn't exactly know how to turn it into anything.
Right.
So, but I got that bug in me and I said, you know what, I'm done with the car business. I'm out. I need to go do something I love. And so sold everything and dove straight into music.
Isn't it cool when you like figure out that thing?
Oh, and
then
clicks.
You get to do it and every day you're like, I get to do this.
I get to do this, yeah, 100%. Awesome. And it's also scary that moment because it's like you go into something that's passionate, but you don't truly know what it's going to turn into.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I totally get that. That's kind of how it all was with my business. It's funny because, I went to college minoring in business with the anticipation in my mind of like, I'm going to run a business one day.
Right.
And then once I started at the agency and was in that a couple of years and realized like, wow, this is a lot of work.
Right.
This is really stressful. And my mind instantly was like, I will never own my own business.
Right.
Truly. I was like, that is not the path for me. That is not the path for me. So whenever I ended up making that transition, I just kind of felt like I had reached a point at the agency where I wasn't really able to grow the way that I wanted to. And my first initial instinct was like, I'm not going to start my business, but I just need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So I ended up making a crazy transition into healthcare, which of course, when I made that announcement, the whole world was like, what? What are you doing? And I was like, I honestly have no idea what I'm doing, but I need to do something different. And maybe I just need to start enjoying my passions and not working within them.
Right.
That was like kind of the mindset that I had. And then I quickly realized once moving into healthcare that it definitely was not the industry for me. I mean, I get queasy sometimes in hospitals, and I think I had like an interview that I was conducting. I think it was like in the cancer center or something, and I had to like sit down.
So you can't see blood, you can't do all that?
I mean, honestly, I can, but just depending on what it is, like sometimes I get like a little, and there was just an interview where I had to like sit down, and I'm like, I am not cut out for this. And while I was there, I started getting requests from like old clients that were no longer working with the agency anymore, like people asking me to do some work on the side, all this stuff. And so I started to do it. And then after a while, I was like, why am I doing this at night when I could be doing it during the day and not having to work in healthcare anymore?
Right.
So I was actually, this was back in 2018 or 2017. I was getting married in the beginning of 2018 and decided like I don't want to go into my wedding and go into my honeymoon knowing that I'll have to come back to a career that I'm like really not enjoying.
Right.
So me being the crazy person that I am, quit my job the week of my wedding.
Wow.
Started a business, got all the licenses, all that stuff the week of the wedding, and went into my wedding during the band's break, talked to the band, told them I was starting a business, and they ended up becoming my first client. I did their social media. It was Bag of Donuts. I did their social media for like a handful of years after that.
Oh, John and all those guys. So yeah,
they're so awesome.
So Bag of Donuts played my 13th birthday party.
Nice.
And they played my 18th birthday party.
They're the greatest.
They are just unbelievable. It was pretty funny. I actually got in trouble because the drummer handed me a bottle of Jack Daniels that was like pretty much empty, but they had loaded it with Coca-Cola, and I'm in 8th grade, it's 13 years old, and the principal, the whole school, everybody's at my party, and now I'm on stage chugging a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Why was your principal at your birthday party?
We invited the whole school. So like, and it was like, so I went to St. Paul's on Canal Boulevard.
Okay.
It was very small.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our whole 8th grade class was, I want to say it was like 19 people.
Oh.
So like.
So you had to invite more people.
So I invited everybody, like, and then all the teachers came, the principal came, like, and because it's just a very small, knit school. But yeah, so I got pulled in the principal's office the next week, and they were like, we didn't know this was going to happen, and it's not really a good look for us. So, but anyway,
That's so funny.
They're great. I love Bag of Donuts.
Oh my gosh, they're fantastic.
They must be easy to PR too, because they're just fun.
And they perform so often. They had so much content. I just did their social, and it was just a very easy social to execute because they had so many gigs always, and just so much amazing photo content. So it was fantastic.
Was Andy still their manager? I don't who was their manager. Andy was the guy that I knew.
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Okay.
I don't even know if they
had
there
one
was
anymore.
A manager.
Yeah, because John's still the lead singer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't think there was a manager that I worked with.
Okay.
I think I just worked with the guys directly.
I got you. Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm almost 40 now, so it was a while ago. So they must have been doing some stuff. But anyway, well, that's awesome. No, the band stuff is different too, than just an artist, because you have all different images to deal with. Mm-hmm. What would be like? Was that fun for you to kind of play off of multiple characters in a sense, or is it easier to just find one? To connect with?
Well, it's funny because now that I'm thinking about it, majority of the artists that I've done PR for have all been, besides Bag of Donuts, and that was pretty much strictly social media, so I wasn't doing very much media relations with them. But they're all solo artists,
right?
So I haven't really worked on. I guess I've done some duos and some stuff like that, but most of them have been solo artists, which is nice because then you can really find what that unique story is for them.
Yeah.
But then it's also when you have a duo, for example. I just recently worked with Sax Kicks Ave, and that's two guys who are fantastic and so different and so unique in their own way that there's multiple angles to kind of go off of, and it's here's this one person who has these great talents, and here's this other person who's known for this, and they come together to make new music.
Right, you almost have two different fan bases.
Right, exactly. Yeah, from other groups, and they came together and are doing this duo thing, and so I think it's kind of nice to have both, because you can focus on one really cool, unique story with the solo artist.
Right.
And then with a duo or a larger band, there's
just multiple
plenty
characters.
of stories that you can tell.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow, it's hard to keep all those together, though, and make it a glue, because they have to be cohesive still.
Right. Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine if you had, a band with 5 or 6 people. I feel like it could get a little difficult. But then there's also so much content. It's ongoing storytelling, because there's just more and more things.
There's more and more to do, yeah.
Yeah, things that you can talk about.
How do you think PR has changed over the last couple of years?
Oh, man. Well, there's been a lot of change, I tell you that. COVID brought such a big change to the PR, the media industry, all of it. Really first just starting with cutting costs, layoffs. Obviously when COVID hit, everything shut down, which meant that less money was coming in.
Right.
People couldn't get paid. So it was crazy to see, especially within my industries of food and music, some of the first layoffs were the big music writers and the big food writers. And it was such a big shock to everybody, because they had been so loyal to these publications for so many years.
Long,
and it was my go-to contact of the people that I'm talking to every single day, all of a sudden are just not a part of it. Some of them ended up moving on, getting different jobs. Some of them came back. But really, that started like a complete change within media, which then impacts PR. Because what I noticed is staffs all got smaller. They all shrunk, like exponentially shrunk, to where now the teams are so small. And media, like big announcements that used to generate so much coverage within a short period of time, like for example, a lineup announcement or like a brand new single or a new album, something that's big. You used to be able to pitch that out and get everyone to write about it within an hour, because the way that media used to work, at least, was if new news comes out that is newsworthy or notable, we want to be the first to get it out there.
Right.
So I send out a lineup announcement like for Buku or for Hangout, which is another client of mine, and it would get covered immediately. Now you push it out there and you hope that you can get like a couple of pieces that first day, and then really over the course of the next like week, it's follow-up calls, emails, and the pieces will slowly come out. But even after a couple of weeks, you're still not getting as much as you used to get like on that first day. So even where I have the connections where, you know, you have the networks and you have the writers that you've been working with forever, they just don't have as much time, or some of them aren't even allowed to write as freely as they were before. You know, writers that used to do, I worked with most of the theaters in town, honestly. The Civic, I helped them reopen. The Orpheum, I helped them reopen. You know, I've worked with the Joy, Republic, pretty much every venue I feel like I've touched in some way. When we reopened the Civic and the Orpheum, they had an amazing calendar of new music where it was multiple shows per week for the first couple of months. And we were pushing out all those shows. And we would get front page, full-length feature articles, you know, with Keith Sparrow interviewing every artist. These just amazing spreads every time, because it was new, big news with big artists coming in and doing these.
There was a lot of stuff going on at the Civic. So I actually lived at the Civic for a year.
Well, that's where we got married. That's where our reception was.
Okay.
But it's my favorite venue in town. I absolutely love it.
It's great.
It was a dream to have our reception there.
I had the one-bedroom penthouse at the Civic. Yeah, it was great. It opened up on the roof, and it was awesome.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was nice.
Did you go to concerts a lot?
I did. I went to a few there. It's been 12 years now, probably. But yeah, I went to a few there.
Yeah. It was the greatest. But yeah, I mean, the kind of coverage that we used to be able to get, it almost just doesn't feel like it exists anymore.
Right.
And I get it. It's like these writers who used to be able to dedicate so much time to these amazing features are now kind of strapped thin or having to cover multiple, you know, sometimes it's like a food writer or a music writer might also have to randomly cover like weather or traffic, and you'll see an article come out and you're like, why is that right?
Why is that right?
But I think it's just because they had to lay off some of those writers on some of those smaller beats, because it's just, you know, they have to they had to pick and choose, and they can't have everybody.
No, well, and everybody had to kind of shrink down their whole system. It was a little bit like Katrina.
Right.
Like, you know, my grandfather was in the hotel business, and after Katrina came through, you know, you couldn't get the employees back. You couldn't do, you know, but yet you had, as a hotel, you had all kinds of rooms for your construction people and everybody coming in. So you were kind of having to operate as 100%, as much as you could, but with almost no help. So they ended up basically tailoring their whole system down to about 35% of the amount of employees that they had pre-Katrina.
Right.
And they got so used to running on that little amount of employees that once everything came back, they didn't rehire that 70%. They maybe hired another 5-10%, and they're back done. And
that's exactly. I think that's exactly how it's kind of been in my world as well. Like, even though things are starting to feel somewhat back to normal, kind of. Right. It's still not like the staffs aren't as full as they used to be. Right. You can still tell that they're not able to cover as much as they used to. Right. You know, I remember back when COVID first started, a lot of the writers were hired part-time, and I would send a pitch out, let's just say on a Monday, and would get a response like, I only work Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like, I'll get big, and it's, you know, I think there was probably a lot of anger because a lot of those writers were really upset that they were laid off or moved to part-time, and so they were choosing to like only truly work on those days that they were getting paid, which I understand.
Well, and then when you spread people around so thin, they don't care as much.
Right. Yeah. I think just like the passion was lost, and it turned into like less, you know, really in-depth feature stories where you had to come up with a creative pitch or idea into like a lot of listicles and a lot of these 5 concerts this week, you know, which are great. And those are really good when it comes to like SEO and being really searchable online and stuff. But there wasn't as much creativity that I felt like we were able to express on the PR front, because those creative stories weren't really being told as much anymore.
Right. Well, and everybody stopped doing everything. So
Yeah.
in a sense, what are you spending anybody to do when everybody's at home? Like,
Right.
you can't really sell anything.
Right.
in
Yeah.
a
And I mean,
sense.
honestly, at the beginning of COVID, pretty much every business that I worked with shut down.
Shut
I mean, every
down, yeah.
festival got canceled. No artists were pushing music.
Right.
Every restaurant had to close.
Right.
You know, luckily there was kind of ways with restaurants where they were able to shift a little bit. But it was crazy.
Yeah, no, it definitely changed things for the future. Like, we're not getting everything back. Just
Oh no.
you know,
I mean, everyone's still struggling like financially. It's,
Yeah.
you know, all these businesses got these loans, and I feel like they're somewhat kind of having to pay them back, or it's like now people are suffering even though they were told like you're not going to have to pay for
Yeah.
this, you know. And so I feel like everyone's kind of falling behind right now. I think
Yeah,
there's
well-
no way to catch up.
Well, I attribute it a little bit to like 9/11. Like, after 9/11, like 9/11's been gone a long time. We haven't gotten any of those rights back.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I still can't bring nail clippers on the damn plane. Like, you know, like it is definitely, we are still dealing with
Yeah.
the backlash of it, and COVID's going to be the same way. We are not going to get some of those freedoms back.
No.
And then that's what's kind of scary.
Right.
Tell me about the Recording Academy. How'd that
Yeah,
come about?
so that was actually a really cool kind of
Shout out
a way
Reed.
that shout out Reed. Love you, Reed. He's the best. I actually just got breakfast with him the other day,
Oh, okay.
earlier this week. He's so fantastic. I was actually invited to speak at a music and entertainment conference in, I think it was in, oh my gosh, I think it was in southern Mississippi. It was put on by a college, and they had found me online and asked for me to come speak. So I went out there and I did this thing. It was a super great panel. There was somebody, I think, with Sony on the panel with me. And then, oh man, what is her name? Tank and the Bang's manager. I'm blanking on her name, but she's fantastic. The three of us were on this panel talking about the music industry and, you know, various people within the industry and kind of how we all operated. And Reed happened to be attending. And it was funny because it was a first-year conference. It was
Right.
pretty small, so the audience was relatively small. But there was Reed in the
There was
audience.
Reed,
And
yeah.
I can't remember I think he actually emailed me afterwards. I don't think we ever connected on site there, but he shot me an email and was like, hey, I heard you talk at this conference. Like, let's get together and chat. You know, love finding like people in our industry in New Orleans, all this
Right.
stuff. So we ended up getting together, and he's like, I think you'd be a great member of the Recording Academy. So he nominated me, and you have to get a couple of nominations to
Right.
end up getting accepted. And I was able to become a member. And actually,
Awesome.
I think that was in 2020 that I became a member. So it was kind of crazy because obviously things, you know, all shut down.
Right.
But it was really neat because the Recording Academy does a lot of district advocacy. So I know we actually
Yep.
had our last district advocate day here at Elation.
That's right.
But the first one that I participated in was all virtual because it was during COVID. But I found it like incredibly fascinating getting to work with like all of these artists and, you know, producers and just everyone that's involved in various aspects of the entertainment industry, and me kind of being like the business member. And, you know, majority of the people that are involved are like straight up musicians and, you know, artists, which is so awesome. But it was really cool to kind of be able to talk to like our state legislators and help them understand the importance of music. And, you know, there's tons of bills that are trying to get passed that are kind of stuck. And
You learn that they really want music.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really
yeah,
want it.
a lot of them want to push for it. And it's kind of crazy that some of these things are like take so much effort to kind of get pushed through, and some of them like just still aren't making movement. But it was a really cool way to start off my involvement in the Academy. And I was able to go to the Grammys that year, and it was or not that
Fabulous.
year, the next year.
Pretty
it was,
amazing.
It was amazing. We're going to go back next year. We weren't able to go back this year. I have a small baby at home. But next year's our year. We're going back because the first year we went, it was in Vegas. And that was because I guess like with COVID and stuff, they couldn't do it in LA.
Right.
So we're ready to go back and do it like the real way, the real LA way. But it was amazing. And it's been super cool
That's awesome.
to be involved with
That's
all
awesome.
of that.
Yeah,
Just-
well, they've been great for me too. Like, I did Grammy camp for a while when I was in LA,
Oh,
and
nice.
you know, they really, you know, I think they need to do more, but
Yep.
they do a good outreach, and try to get kids involved and things. But I definitely think that there's more to be done,
Right.
to save the music classes of the world because, it's definitely dying. It's one of those things,
Yeah. Well, Reed and I were even talking about it. Like, I just feel like New Orleans is kind of still in this phase where it feels a little sad. Like the music industry since COVID really hasn't gotten back to the place.
Since Katrina. I mean, that's why I built this building.
No, you're right. Honestly, like it's
been forgotten about.
Yeah, and it's something that my husband and I have noticed because we'll see all these tours coming out, and they'll skip over New Orleans. And my in-laws live in Birmingham, and my brother-in-law will always be like, "Oh, this tour is coming to Birmingham," and we're like,
"What about New Orleans?"
Yeah, like why isn't it coming here? And I think I don't know if it's like our lack of incentives that we give to artists, or I don't know. I think there's probably a combination of things.
Promoters that are bringing people in town aren't the right promoters now. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, but I just, I think it's for a city that's so widely known for music, you'd think.
You would think that they get a lot of support and would have to run through the city.
Right.
But, well, great. Well, I really appreciate everything and talking to you today and getting to know you. What brings elation to you in your life?
Well, of course, number one is my family. They're just so amazing. We finally wrapped up our little family. We have 2 girls, a 3.5-year-old and a 7-month-old now. What would really bring me elation is some sleep because we're not quite there yet. But,
I hear you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, with work, I just feel like seeing success and, kind of like that example with Buku where it's like you have this situation or you have this event or you have this message that you want to spread and you get it out there and you see the success from the work that you do, whether it's like a festival sells out or a restaurant gets more bookings or an event sells more tickets, whatever it may be. But I love when I can see like all the work that I've put in like really, really pay off.
Right.
And that's kind of like what keeps me going. But I feel like sometimes being out working on an event and then actually like getting, because there's so much PR work that's done like behind a computer that people don't realize.
Right.
When you're actually there after like the months of all the work that you've done and you get to be on site and watch it kind of all be executed and then see all the media come out as a result, that brings me a lot of joy. And it just kind of like makes me strive to do more things
keep
like
moving,
that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, can you tell us your socials and where people can find you?
Yeah, at Emily Diament and then emilydiament.com. Emily at emilydiament.com. Pretty much just anything at Emily Diament. So, but yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
Diament PR.
Well, great. Well, reach out if you need PR because,
I'm here. I'm here.
She knows what she's doing. We know that. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It was nice getting to know you. And thank you guys for joining us for Elation, where we find exhilarating euphoria through creation and collaboration. Thank you.